by factoring. I'm going to do 3 videos to solve a quadratic. We're going to do one by factoring. There'll be one by completing the square, quadratic formula, and eventually we'll get to the 4th method. But for now, just these 3 videos. All right, so here's our first example. I'm going to start right off the bat with x squared minus 4x plus 4 is equal to 0. I'm going to do it all 3 different ways. I'll do the grouping method, Lizzie method, and guess and check. First thing you got to make sure is that it's equal to 0. If it's not equal to 0, you can't go further. First method is going to be guess and check. So what times what is x squared? Pretty easy. It's got to be x and x. Your first terms when you FOIL give you x squared. Your last terms when multiplied will give you positive 4. So what times what is positive 4? When you add the outside and the inside, you end up with negative 4x. So what times what is 4 combined to give you negative 4? Hopefully you said negative 2 and negative 2, because 2 negatives multiplied gives you a positive, added gives you a negative. So it's minus 2 and minus 2. All right, so 2 things multiplied together are going to equal to 0. I want you to think for a minute just down here. If I had 2 things multiplied together equal to 0, it's called the zero product property. So if this is 0 and y is any number, you're going to get 0. The other way, if y was 0, x was any number, you'd get 0. So either x has to be 0 or y has to be 0. There's going to be 2 answers for this problem because the highest exponent is squared. So in the end, you better end up with 2 zeros, 2 answers. All right, so all you have to do, you guys, is plug each of these equal to 0. X minus 2 is equal to 0, and x minus 2 is equal to 0. Solve, you're going to add 2 to both sides. This is where a lot of kids kind of make a mistake and accidentally just write negative 2. X is equal to a positive 2. Same thing here. X is equal to a positive 2. It's kind of a special case. I just said there were 2 answers, and in this one there's only 1. But when we get to graphing, it's a special case. Basically, this quadratic is sitting on 2. So it's kind of a repeated answer. And that's our next unit that we're coming up to. So to write it as a coordinate, it's going to be 2, 0, and 2, 0. Those are the x values. That's where your graph is crossing the x-axis. All right, let's do another one. Example 2. X squared plus 9x plus 18. All right, I'll use British method or grouping method. It kind of means the same thing. You can always have a 1 up here. 1 times 18 is 18. Just kind of showing you in case it wasn't a 1 up there. So same kind of idea. You're looking for 2 numbers that multiply together to give you 18, but combine to give you 9. Positive 6 and positive 3. So the grouping method, or British, is you write the first term and you write the last term, and you split this middle term into, like in FOIL, outside and inside, or 6x and 3x. All you're doing is splitting. 6 plus 3 is 9, so you're just splitting it apart. You can put the 3x here and the 6x here. That part doesn't matter which one you put first. It'll still work out. So I'm going to group the first 2 together, and I'm going to group the last 2 together. What can you take out of the first 2 terms here? What do they have in common? Well, the only thing they have in common is the x. So we can factor an x out. When you do that, you'll be left with x plus 6. What can we factor out of the last 2 terms? You can take a 3 out, so plus 3. And you'll be left with x plus 6. Now it should always work out that what you're left with is the same. Like if this doesn't happen, there's a mistake somewhere. So when you pull the x plus 6 out here, what are you left with? X plus 3. So we're pulling that out there. So you're left with x plus 3. Now you could do this using guess and check like I did in the previous example, or the grouping method, it doesn't matter. Zero product property, you set each piece equal to 0. You solve, so you're going to subtract 6. X is equal to negative 6, subtract 3. X is equal to negative 3. Write them as coordinates because they're crossing the X at negative 6, 0 and negative 3, 0. So our graph is crossing the X. You're solving for X. All right, I'm going to do one more, and this time I'll do Lizzie method. And I'm also going to do it with a leading coefficient. Okay? How about this one? 7x squared plus 23x plus 6 is equal to 0. Always make sure it's equal to 0. Sometimes I forget to say that. But if it's not equal to 0, when we get to that 0 product property at the end, it won't work. You know, it has to equal to 0. All right, so here's Lizzie. It starts out the same way that the grouping method does. 7 times 6, or A times C, is 42. So, I'm going to come over here. What times what is 42 combined to give you 23? If I don't see it right away, I start with my 2's. How many times does 2 go into 42? It goes in 21. Are 2 and 21 equals 23? In this case, they are. If they weren't, I'd try 3 into 42 and 4 and so on. But my first guess worked, so it's 21 and 2. So this is the Lizzie method. All you're going to do is set it up with x plus 21 and x plus 2. But equals 0. But the most important part, and this is what a lot of people forget, is this 7. Okay? As it stands right now, x times x is x squared, not 7x squared, and that's a problem. So you take the 7 and you put it under the numbers. Simplify it here if you can. You got to simplify it first. Can 7 go into 21? If so, how many times? Can 2 over 7 be reduced? So you throw it up front. So 7x plus 2 equals 0. So you notice here the x and the 7x does give you 7x squared. 3 times 2 gives you 6, so we're good to go. Outside is 2x, inside is 21, that's 23. Set each piece equal to 0. Solve, x is negative 3. Subtract 2 divided by 7. Negative 2 over 7. Write it as a coordinate, and that's your answer. All right, once you've shown us your notes here, actually, you know what, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to do one more example. We got time. Here's our last example. 5x squared minus 6x plus 3 equals 2. Now keep preaching on this. Is it equal to 0? And it's not equal to 0, but it has to be. So in order to make it equal to 0, I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. I mean, if you get started on this and you don't notice that, it's not going to work. So 5x squared minus 6x plus 1 is equal to 0. I'll go ahead and do Lizzie, I guess. I feel like most people do Lizzie. So 5 times 1 is 5. So what times what is 5 combined to give you negative 6? It's got to be negative 5 and negative 1. So I'm doing Lizzie. So x minus 5 and x minus 1. It doesn't matter if you put the 1 first or the 5. It doesn't matter. We're not finished. This is, again, huge deal because of this 5. Right now, x times x is x squared, not 5x. So we're going to throw the 5 underneath the number part. Reduce if possible. 5 over 5 is 1. Can't do anything with 1/5, so that 5 is going to get thrown up top. Set each piece equal to 0. So x is going to be equal to 1 1/5. Write it as a coordinate, 1, 0, 1/5, 0. All right, now I'm done. Now you can practice.